Alright, let's get this started. So, I'm starting a sort of devlog as I'm discovering Unity and just in general learn how to develop games, which has been like a hidden passion of mine. Been a developer for probably more than 10 years at this point, 30 years old, and kind of want to my old dreams become sort of a reality, at least on some level. So this might be a sort of archive of how I failed or how I succeeded. We'll see. But I'm hoping to gain a lot of insight on how someone who's just starting out jumps into or encounters issues, and what are the things that are logical and not logical, or intuitive and not intuitive, especially in the context of Unity and just game development. For example, just figuring out what a mesh is, what its relation to an object is already a challenge in itself, and those sorts of questions. I'm not going to keep this. I'm going to keep this unscripted intentionally because I just don't want to hassle. It's not really about the recording; it's more just a sort of to have some sort of a record of my progress, but don't really have any big ideas or big goals with the recordings themselves. So let's see how it goes. So I think it's probably best to jump right in. I'm already looking into certain, well, not issues, but certain things. Oh, wait, something's not exactly right with the resolution. All right, I need to change this. Hold on. I have a 4K monitor and things are not exactly as they should be. Hold on. There you go. I think that's gonna work. Right. So already, this is a pretty simple issue in retrospect. It's not really an issue at all. I had this cube that I was working on. This is not Unity, this is the one. So I had this little cube and I was trying to figure out how to add the little jumpy mechanism to it. And so what I did was, originally I had one box collider, not two, and I just said, okay, so let's make this a trigger, because I figured out that, okay, so each object has a certain collider, or needs a certain collider, which can be like a rough shape of the object, can be following roughly the mesh of the object, or can be exactly the same thing. So there are a number of different colliders, but with boxes, obviously, it's pretty simple because you can just have a box collider. So I figured that out. It works pretty well. It doesn't go through the surface anymore when gravity is applied, so that's good. So it just stops. But what I wanted to do is add the jumpy mechanism, so when it hits the surface, it jumps up, which I've done with this on trigger script. One thing I don't really know is what would happen if I added more rigid bodies. Like, is this get component always getting the first rigid body, or can I not have multiple rigid bodies? Could I add another one? Let's see. Rigid. Okay. Yeah, alright. Guess I can't. So anyway, this script, when it runs, it gets the rigid body and the component. But it gets the rigid body component on the object, and then on this trigger enter, which happens when the object's collider collides with something else, then it's being triggered because I just toggled the trigger, and then that's when I apply some force on the object itself. So it has this jumping little effect. I might try to experiment with this a little and make it like a ball, like a rubber ball, because technically I think you could, from the object's velocity, you could calculate the opposite, like you could calculate the opposite force when it hits the surface, or when it collides with anything, you should be able to calculate an opposite force, but with a little bit of less force than the velocity with the velocity it arrived with, and then that should result in a sort of rubber ball effect, where it sort of bounces around until it finally loses force, because the applied force upon collision would be always a little less than the force it came with. So this could be expanded a little later. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do that though. So anyway, okay, it seems like I'm getting the rigid body multiple times for some reason. I don't think this is necessary actually. I should be able to just do this. Oh no, because in C# I think you have to have something like, so I think properties are declared as such. Doesn't seem to need an initial value here. Not that I'm coming from a sort of JavaScript PHP background, so and like I've studied many languages in university, but it's been a while since I worked with anything like C. But it's all pretty familiar from TypeScript there. So anyway, I think the only bit that's weird here is that I'm accessing RB, which is highlighted here, so it sort of makes it obvious what's happening here. But is this thing? Can I do this? Do it in 2. I think if I declare it, then it's gonna be a scoped variable or something. Oh, what did I do? No, it's working okay. So now it highlights. So on start now I'm setting that, which I'm using later, so that I'm not getting it every single trigger, because I think that's not necessary. It's enough to get it once and store it in memory. So yeah. Anyway, I did that, and I thought that it's gonna work because I have a collider, and that collider is now triggers as well. Triggers my script. Actually, what happens if I apply multiple scripts? I guess all of them would be called with. Okay, I need to get something out of the way with these box colliders, because I keep starting to talk about it but never finish it. So essentially, what I discovered is that if I only have one box collider with a trigger, then when you run it, it doesn't actually keep the sort of rigid body collider functionality that it had. And that's because as soon as you say that this is a trigger collider, it's basically letting everything pass through it, and instead of it being part of the physics and the whole rigid body stuff, it's just for detecting collisions as other objects touch this object with the collider, and as it goes through, and it keeps being there. So it's not just the on trigger enter. I think there is another one which is on trigger end, maybe, or something. Is this gonna give me some auto suggestions? Would be handy. Maybe if I had some other interface here. Essentially, yeah, I should look into that actually. Essentially, you can trigger or call these functions based on enter and or when the two objects stop colliding and stop overlapping, and also whilst they are being overlapped, you would get a call if you implement those functions. But essentially, that's why the box collider becomes just a trigger function as soon as you take that trigger. So you have to add another box collider, which is now responsible for the rigid body physics stuff. So the two is basically identical, but if I wanted to, I could make the trigger collider a different shape and say that, okay, so physics apply when it hits with this particular collider, but then triggering something would be with a slightly different collider. So let's see, so this should work now. There you go. So it's simply jumping up and down. The interesting bit about this is that every time it collides with something, it always applies the upward force. So if I push this around a little bit, it will keep jumping. And it's gonna have this though. I'm not sure why it's jumping so high though, every now and then. It would be nice to, because I applied a constant force, but this doesn't seem to be constant. Must be something to do with the physics. Oh, and sometimes it... Oh, maybe it collides with other stuff. And that's fine. Okay, anyway. So, the next thing I want to figure out is whether I can add multiple colliders, trigger colliders, and have multiple scripts, or if one script can react to collision events from multiple colliders, because this seems to imply that it only has like a single on trigger enter, but if I have multiple collider, maybe it will be called with a different collider object. What do we have here? Okay, I was scared there for a second. I thought that I didn't switch over from just the webcams to the webcam plus screen, in which case all my recording would have been useless. Anyways, that's what I have here. Parent RP trigger handler mono behavior. Let's search for this. Do I have an interface for this? Oh, hold on. These are all mono behaviors, which I think have all already. Can I click through this? No, would be nice. There must be some Unity extension to studio code.
De most már Szibi, eltettem a izéket. Rátettem a fedőt.
Jó, csak állíts le.
És leállítottam, hogy ne párologjon tovább.
Megkövetted egy kicsit? Kicsit közelebb átlétszem. Autocompletions, that's what I need. No idea what's the difference between these two. What's a targeting pack? Targeting pack for package of to the applications. Okay. So what's the difference between E and U and the other one? Just gonna get the bigger one. It also said that I should close my programs. Fix. This is actually another interesting bit. So I was thinking about the tools that it has for version control. It seemed like it has a couple. We have a couple options. One of which is this collaborate, which is a very simple bare bones kind of thing, especially if you're used to Git and branching and pull requests and whatnot. This doesn't have any of that, at least at this moment, although I think yesterday I read that like a year ago the developers of the collaborate tool said that there's going to be some branching. Not sure how that's going along, but currently it just stores everything in cloud, which is good enough for me, and I think it has a gigabytes worth of free storage, which is good enough. And there's a Git extension or a Git plugin to Unity as well, which obviously, since it's Git, has branching, which could come in handy in the future. Let's see. Although I might just go with raw Git. I saw a video how to set up raw Git, because I'm just more familiar with it. The only thing I think you need to do is making the somewhere in the options, I don't know, the metadata files visible to the file system or to Git, so that it actually detects them and you can save it. But that shouldn't be too hard to set up either. Maybe in the future. For now, Collaborator X. Let's try this. Go close VS Code as well. Let's install. Yes. Oh, that was close. Fast. Close. What am I saying? Okay, so where did you need to go? Oh, probably didn't pin it. Unity Hub. 3 test thingy. In the taskbar. I'm gonna pin Unity Hub as well. Okay, let's see if now I have auto completion. Show extension. Maybe by auto completion they mean the control space thing and not the click to feature that I so wanted. Maybe can I just, and these are probably the stuff that I get from mono behavior. Maybe I have the trigger effect. How about on maybe private void on what's just this? Wait, if I remove this on trigger enter on. Okay. Yes, this is not happening. Oh, finally. There's no on trigger enter. Is that only because I have this here? So what if I remove this and I start tapping on? Yeah. So this is not happening for a newcomer. Sort of, I miss Prettier so much. I hate formatting code. Is it C# Prettier? I'm not the only one thinking about this. Let's check this resharper. Can't be bothered to dealing with this. Yeah, but essentially what I'm missing here is autocompletion or offerings for functions, because I don't even know the two names of the other functions that come here, like onTrigger end and onTrigger. I don't know what the other one was. It would be so nice to get some autocompletions for this. Could this open within the editor? Show, explore, collaborate, create, open C# project. Is that one? Yeah, sound that just opens code. So annoying. I'm even searching for Unity. Two. I think this is what I already have. Like if I type, hold on, box slider. This is all. Essentially, if I type rb dot something, I have these. Head force is there. What? Okay, that's just silly. Okay, hold up now. Mailist async rb dot. I'm not entirely sure how async works in C#. Is it something similar to JavaScript async? Why is it so small? Okay, I just need to look here. Auto complete. No idea. At least this is a lot bigger now. At 4 said before mono behavior. Once we can do this. So what's this then? I feel like this is just misguiding me. says there's code to definition, but how? There's this one. Come on. It's not something I need right now. So could I go to definition here? Yeah, so this works. So I can click through here. I mean, I guess as good as it gets for now. There might be maybe a solution. How about collider? Like, so annoying that I don't know what's available to me here. So like, seems like everything has one behavior, but I'm sort of doubting that. Like, I don't know what these are. I think it's getting it from these. So it's not really reliable auto-completion. And this is when the developer experience is really annoying, because then I need to search this executing the API. Okay, now I have these properties. Bounds, for example. Do I have auto-completion for bounds? It's not even here. So like, I know for sure that that's there because it's documented here. The collider has bounds also. It seems like there is other stuff here. I actually have a different version as well, but it's fine. Maybe I should use the documentation for version 1021. I think this is a normal release. Not an LTS, but not an alpha release either. Or beta. First collider trigger. Enable contact offset. Bounds material. Maybe I should. Oh, there's a name of the object. So the collider is an object, so I'm a bit confused by what's called what. Obviously, the things called being objects in programming, but here we have objects meaning the shape, like the whole entity that has components attached to it. Then there are the components, the scripts. Like, what you mean by an object name is that, so if I have a collider here, can I name it somewhere? Is this properties? Ah, it's the same thing. Doesn't seem like I can name it. Would be nice to give it some ID. If I add another collider, just to test things out. Can't I drag and drop? This is really annoying. Why can't I just move this up here? Okay. This is just harder than I expected, so now I have two colliders, and I'm gonna make one a bit bigger. Actually, can I just... Is this collider? I didn't... Okay, so again, this, I'm not sure what's happening here. The size remained 1 by 1 by 1. And here, even though I just changed this, do I need to enter with something? Okay, don't get it. What will this back change the size to 2? I don't get this. Okay, hold on. Even if I switch this off, this is still visible. Again, that's not helping. So I just want to make this a little bit wider. And I would love to just type it in because I like precise values. I'm just dragging things around like this is not my favorite thing to do. So I essentially just want to make this a bit bigger. Alright, that's not the one. Also, I have access to all of the colliders, not just this one. Okay. So I'm editing all of the colliders when I click this button, not just the one I clicked on. And actually it's just switching between different modes. So that's a bit, I mean, I guess it comes in handy. Hold on, the center in place. Sort of comes in handy to just trigger it here where I'm working, but also confusing because it's like a global state change for the editor really. It's not something that you do to that particular, well, it's not something you switch on that particular component. I'll save one. So anyway, so I should have 2 trigger colliders that enable flow, which means that maybe now my script will be triggered by two things. I think there is, oh yeah, there's a debug log. So I should be able to log, to just log. Obviously I won't be able to differentiate between the two colliders just yet, but I need to figure out how to identify the colliders, and I'm not sure if the debugging function helps me out here. So where was I? Oh yeah, I must have screwed something up. I didn't edit the right things. And I guess this is yet another thing that I need to wrap my head around. Like when I tried this, I didn't realize I was grabbing the physics box collider, not the triggering box collider. So that was an issue that basically broke everything. But now having, what if I click this? Oh yeah, this was the confusion. Yeah, it's not a intuitive UI. So I click this button to edit the collider. I realized that there are now these little handles that you can drag. Start dragging it, being under the impression that I'm editing this collider. Whilst really I'm editing this one because this button, like all of these buttons, are just switching in between global editor state and not really starting to edit this particular collider. These are the things that really make beginnings hard. Oh, I know what I forgot to do. I need to record my audio. Pixel has this transcribing feature. Would be nice to sort of do this. Okay. Is it gonna save everything? Oh yeah, I can just switch in between the audio and the transcript. Yeah, alright. Just gonna leave this here. So anyway, where was I? So, seems like that the two triggers are triggering the same function, so that means that there must be a way to distinguish between the two colliders within that function, within here on the on trigger enter, to know which trigger happened, because currently both of them gets triggered at the same time, which means this function is called twice, which means basically a double force. I'm not really sure what 200F means here, by the way. It's just something I read somewhere that I need to add. It seems to have like a certain amount of force. So I need to do now, I think I'm gonna keep experimenting with this. So I want to make this 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. So one collider is bigger than the other. One trigger collider. Which means, or should mean that, yep, so it triggers slightly earlier than the other. So, having said that, as it fell, it should have applied that force. What if I just disable the smaller collider for now? Oh, okay, so when you switch it off, it actually has a little transparency change so that you know it's not active. So what happens if I have this bigger collider? So before it touches the surface, it should apply an upward force. And it's not. Or it's just not enough. Or it's just not enough. Let's see. Let's apply a much bigger force. Or sort of big force. 600. Maybe it's not enough to counter gravity even. What happened? Come on. There you go. So now it's enough to counteract gravity. So this is weird to me too. It's jumping all over the place and starts rotating. Why is that? I'm applying a single upwards force and nothing else touched on this cube. So why is this happening now? Also, once it logged the trigger enter, it's not logging it anymore, even though I'm fairly certain it keeps happening. I'm not sure why that log is not repeated multiple times. There should be at least a counter of some sort here. Show timestamp, 103, step trace logging, player log, editor log. I need to figure this out as well. What about 400 F? It's annoying how it needs to sort of load. Oh, okay, yeah, so. Right, so that's basically you need enough force that it jumps high enough so that the collider is higher than the surface, so that when it eventually starts falling, it triggers it again, and then it applies the force again. Because what happened now is that the force wasn't enough. It did apply the force. It was barely enough to counter gravity and lifted it a little, but not enough so that the collider was above the surface, which meant that the collider never triggered again the function. Makes sense? Let's apply something crazy here. Slow am I? Oh! First, that's what done instant. Okay. Something got crazy. Thought that this should be pretty deterministic. but for some reason it starts to rotate, and also, yep, so it starts to rotate, but also as I waited last time, oh yeah, there it is. So when it rotates, somehow it gets a crazy amount of force. It basically became star at this point. Oh, barely. Yes, it seems like that. Maybe there's some sort of air resistance as well. So when it starts rotating. But why did it start rotating at all? Even if there is a resistance, air is everywhere humongous. So it should be the same. Well, anyway. So let's see if I can distinguish between the two colliders. Oh, wait. So here, for example, it would be nice if I could just say or something and have reliable autocompletion, which I don't have. So I need to have this open all the time, I guess. There they are. So these are called messages. Triggered enter, exit, stay, non-collision enter, exit, stay. Oh, so I don't even need a trigger necessarily if it's the same exact thing as my collider. So there's only sense to make a trigger collider if it's different from the object's collider that I already have. So I wouldn't need with a square. If I just want to detect hits and not overlaps with the collider, then oh, so interesting. So I could basically make around an object an arbitrary collider independent from its physics body, which interacts with rigid body stuff, but also can just discard that collider, the trigger collider, if the collider I want to use to trigger things. It's the same exact thing as the physical rigid body one. Game object. The game object is going to attach to. Oh, so I can access the game object through the collider. So what I can say other dot game object here, and that would be the object of this cube 2. What happened here? What else do I have here? Raycast. Casts a ray that ignores all colliders except this one. No idea what a raycast is. Or what how a material works. Trigger enable contact offset. Bounds. Surely there must be a way to name these things. The name of the object. How to get it into name collider. Tagging the collider. Object tag. Yeah, but this is about game objects. To get this object collider name, I want to go into seems like similar issue. Object with the collider as a base in the top collider, and then I have a script attached to my car. We use one to the collisions. Once the fun is called twice, suppose because collider from the base collider to collider. Yeah, I want to check my object collider's name. Trigger them to expose me without a collider, or how can I test my collider's name? Yep. Yeah, this doesn't know what he's talking about. Still gonna check for source trigger collider. There depends on trigger enter, at least today that I know. Time of writing 1020. Oh my god. This was in August, just like 3 months ago. There's no solution. So, very first thing I want to do. I already hit a sort of issue. I don't get this. Small tools since first information on other side. First thing to issue. Same game objective acts as compound colliders. Compound colliders? There is something called ones. So these events are popping up as well. Kind of like Dom. Wow. This is so much harder already than I imagined. So like overriding the default behavior, just extending stuff. This is really crazy to me. There is no way to know from within the script which collider was triggering that script. Especially if I imagine a situation where we have multiple colliders which are meant to trigger certain scripts, not all of the scripts, but in this case, all of the colliders trigger all of the scripts, while at the same time the scripts can't know which collider they were triggered with. Okay, let's go back to the documentation though. There might be something here. Attached articulation body, attached rigid body, bounds, word space. That's not happening. Contact cosmetics, enable trigger material, share material. I mean, you can kind of hack it, I guess, by adding different materials to different colliders, which don't really do anything. Like I'm pretty sure you can apply just a transparent material. I don't have any materials here. Assuming that's how materials work. If you can apply a transparent material, then you can just apply material 1, material 2 here, and then in your script you check for which material is added to the collider. It's kind of hacking it. Shared material, public methods, closest point. Raycast, messages, inheritance. So, what does inheritance mean here? The tag of this game object. So, this is kind of as well. Because tag and name is not really. So, it's not inheritance in the classical sense, I guess. It's like adding global functionality to this collider instance. So, because the name and the tag is not the name and tag of the collider, is it? So yet again, this is something that's sort of confusing just reading the documentation, because I would expect that, okay, so the collider has these properties and methods and whatnot inherited from something, maybe just a base object class or interface, which would allow all of these individual components to have names and tags, which does not seem to be the case. Oh yeah, so this is the name of the tag of the game object. So this is how it inherits. So this component inherits from the game object, and not inherit. It's not inheriting in the classical, like, programming sense of the word. So the name would be just Q2 in this case. So again, that's not useful to distinguish between two colliders. Oh man, this is crazy. Mm-hmm. So basically, I need to start extracting these functionalities into other game objects. So I could probably create a game object here. Can I just add the child? Because this says that I need a child game object. Components, children. Different name game object as children. Separate these colliders. So I need to add the colliders or extract the colliders and then add them back in as children. What did he mean? All sorts of colliders. Can I add the game object here? Double game object button, no. How do I add the children game object on? What does it mean? Can I add the child object here? This is child, and then create 3D object. Create empty. Oh, So, guess this game object was this child object. Means let's say square collider, and I'm gonna have the box collider. It's gonna be just a trigger. So this is gonna be 1. No need for tags or anything. And then I'm gonna add another one here. Empty. This one's gonna be collider as well. Box collider. And this is gonna be like the square collider. And just gonna make the size bigger. Alright, so I have these two colliders. And then in my cube, where's cube 1? Oh, there you are. I'm just gonna delete this. Oh, actually, it's quite fun to experiment with that. So now I don't need these colliders because I have child objects attached to it. So this should bubble up. And now I should be able to get the child game object's name. So this is why that collider could access the game object, which is this object, not the whole game. So in this trigger handler, I'm just gonna log. How does this debug mode work? Can I just use semicolons? Yeah, thanks. Plus is I can have a context object to each message applies. Seems like I need to concatenate or rich text markup. Oh, okay. Logging game object to component will highlight that object. Interesting. So this is. Oh, I could actually just do this. Oh, there. Maybe the other game. Okay. I should be able to just say name according to this because it says that I have an inheritant thing. Maybe I need to go game object of him. Not sure. We'll see. And this also should now flash the collider. It collides. Oh, snap.
Sétáltam egy kicsit. Van epres, meg simát, melyiket szeretnéd?
Simát. Köszi.
De csukja?
Aha. So that didn't work. Maybe because I didn't have that trigger enabled. Oh yeah. There you go. It looks that what? Collider mesh. Doesn't seem to look the name unless the name is collider collider mesh. Still don't have a name. Just want the name. I have no idea what this is. So I have these names of the objects of the object that the collider is attached to. I don't seem to be able to. Okay, let's just not do this. So I should be able to just do something like this. And there I thought I figured it out. Alright. Of course. This is not JavaScript. Let's see if tagging works. Untagged still. I'm not getting this. So is this basically what I'm getting now? I'm gonna remove these. Not sure what layers are. Seems like this is not a solution either. Actually, the on-trigger enter collider, could that be this? The floors collider? Because it's a mesh collider. Hold on. This might be it. So basically, okay. So I know what I collided with, but not what detected the collision. Yeah. Okay, I have an idea. What if I co-locate the script with the collider it needs to work with? Can I just move this? Oh yeah, I can. So let's say big script collider. So now I don't have this anymore. This won't react to anything, and this has script. So now, does this mean that the script is gonna work in the context of this, and that the other collider is not gonna trigger? Because that's fine. Right, so it still had missing component that is not a chip body. Of course. Because the chip body is now the parent game object. How do I get the parent game object? Is it parent? This is not helping. What would I do? Travel to was the parent game object. So transform like these. Transform. So how does get component work? We seems to use the dot notation, so let's say object dot get component. Like it's killing me. Okay. Type of namespace. Name game object will be found. Needs capitals. Yeah, Unity is not making this easy on me. Ah, there you go. Transparent. So, next one. New player. Same transfer parent. New parent transfer. Yeah, that one, the current parent. Maybe I can just go through this. So I get a collider. on the collider. Transform attached to this game object, and each transform has its parent. So the parent is then a game object as well, which has the get component. So should be able to. Alright, but that's only in the context of this. Now behavior is transform a component already. So could I do something like get component transform? Something like this, like the way we get rigid body. It is so hard. Okay, get parent object. This transform parent. This transform parent. So what if I just do this? Is that gonna work? Ah. So it seems like actually it may have worked. We just nerfed this force. Okay, seems to work. So again, it's rotates. It's kind of weird. Don't really get it. Maybe it comes from the fact that it has a speculative collision detection somewhere. Continuous speculative. Maybe if it's continuous, then it's more accurate and doesn't have these little rotations. But again, why is it right? I would expect this to go on forever, and then for some weird reason it just stops. So anyways, this works. That obj equals this. This didn't quite work for some reason. Might need that game object from somewhere else. Yeah. Oh. Alright. I'm an idiot. No. Hold on. So transform parent should be the game object, and it says intended transform to unity engine game object, which means that this parent is a transform. And the engine transform. So could I do something like getting the transform first? And then say to parent get me that. Is that supposed to be the same? Yep. Okay. So basically that this transform is just sort of an escape hatch. Also, in C# it doesn't seem like you need this keyboard, so maybe just say transform the parent. Yep. Okay. Many things to unpack in there. But this means that you can use this keyboard if you want to. But I don't necessarily want to. The weird thing is though that it seems like this transfer parent is not actually a game object, but the parent transform. The parent's transform component. That's really weird. Already I've been recording for an hour and a half. So like, yeah, it's gonna take forever to figure out and learn everything. Okay, so let's do one more thing. So I don't quite get what this transform parents is. I might just start something like this. Notes. Oh, let's say 2020 1107. Could it be the parent's transform component, which means that maybe transform is the one that has get component, public methods, inherited methods. Yeah, so that's kind of weird. No, actually it's not as weird. So I was under the impression that when I said get component, I was doing that through the game object, but actually I was doing that through the collider component. So each of these components has the get component method, which gets a like neighboring components on the current game object. So when I say get the parent transform from my transform, that basically that's kind of weird. So I have this game object, which is a child game object, and I have this transform, and from the script, which is sorry here. So from this, I'm saying select this transform component and get the parent of this transform component, which is this transform component. And this transform component get component will get neighboring components, which is how I can get the rigid body like a level up. And I thought that the way it works is that this component this object has a get component, and by saying this parent, I'm selecting this object which has a get component method, but that's not how it works. So okay, interesting. So I'm just gonna take note that each component has component function which gets neighboring components type get parent Okay, simple one transform parent get component and then body. Yeah, passing in the type. Okay, so all this means now that I should be able to add another script for the small square. Maybe just gonna make this even bigger and say that it should, I don't know, left is the thing. See, this should be possible surely to have auto-completion here. What's left of 3? I shouldn't be googling these things. There you go, left, forward, down, right, okay, so I'm just gonna say left. So basically what I'm gonna do here is add the little nudge when the big collision, when the big trigger, when the big collider is triggered, and then add the upward force when the smaller one is triggered. I'm gonna make the small square collider slightly bigger as well, just so it's not the same that the mesh itself. So there's a small one, this big one, both enabled. Okay, and I'm gonna add the new script. Small square collider panel, and there. Here's your collider, and okay, open it up. So again, I'm gonna need the widget body. What happened here? Oof, gone. Okay, the widget body. We need this, and then every time it triggers, I'll apply an upward force of 400. Should be enough. I don't think I need these anymore. Alright. Apply a very small force in both ways, just so that I'm able to observe. So I guess that's not enough to lift it up. Also, once they overlap, it's not gonna apply that left thing, that left force. What happened there? Suddenly not working. Why didn't it work on the first go? Oh, it applied a little bit of a left push, I think. Let's actually check that. Yep. Then it stayed. Probably because the upward force is not big enough. Or wasn't even triggered. What? Is it the wrong quotation marks? Guess so. Oh. Is good. Shift forward. Deep up. Uppercase. Okay. Okay, again this error. So random. So it does apply the upward force, but it's not enough. Let's try this again. Problem is it's very hard to distinguish between the two colliders to know if it's actually working right. I mean, pretty sure it does. Maybe if I split this big. No, I'm gonna do it the other way around. So the small collider is gonna be the big one. So this way, the upward force should be applied way before it touches the ground, while the left force should be applied much later. Which means that that collider has almost no chance to trigger. So if I make that collider slightly bigger, I think it will work better. So now the left push should get triggered. It's not. Oh, there you go. Okay. See, again, I don't know why that happened. Root force left push. Yeah, so there were a couple instances of the left push there. And since the left collider, the upwards collider, was not triggered anymore, it sort of settled. Same with the left push, because that overlapped with the floor again, so it's not gonna get triggered anymore. Okay. Kinda starting getting it. I think I should have the player somewhere. player object. Yeah, here. Income capsule aim point. So now these mean a lot more. Now that I know that you can sort of create a hierarchy of game object, which so this label makes sense now. How do I? Is the player a rigid body? Damageable. Weapons manager, jetpack, reverse scroller, actor. Did I edit the actor? Player input handler. Because something makes me push or allows me to push the square. What is that? Oh, that could actually be just natural. Because I'm a rigid body, so when two rigid bodies collide, I don't actually see a rigid body here, only a box collider. So, what does a box collider do without a rigid body? Would that still work? Oops. So, this is the player object, and the box collider. This is a. How do I? Oh, I need to do this. Yeah, so this is that. What if make it much bigger? Why can't I move this? Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, okay, don't know how this works. Why can't I suddenly... Why is it there? Why is the player always focused? I want to focus on these. I need to... What do I need to do? Oh my god, this is so annoying. Did I switch into some weird mode? Okay, I'm gonna just restart. I don't know how to move the objects. Something happened, and I could only move the player object. Okay, so now it works. I have no idea what that was. What that is. So if I just make this a mass of 1, just put this quite close here so that I can push it away. Size is fine. Just gonna put it almost there. I have a collider and a rigid body. Let's put this to continuous. I assume this continuous is like very bad for performance, but the most accurate. So seems like it's the most accurate. Okay, so this is not gonna be a trigger. Instead, just a regular collider. So as test if the player can push it away just by virtue of having a collider myself. Doesn't seem like it. Why is it getting so much force sometimes? I don't understand. Because sometimes it triggers 3 times even. So like entering trigger methods, but anyway. So why can't I push this? Seem to be able to push it. This is. Oh, this feels weird. We don't need this. So how do I make the... Should I put a rigid body on the player? Yeah, that's what I need here. This angular drag might be key to understanding what sometimes is happening. Oof. Okay. I'm assuming that something... Maybe I'm too close to this and it's pushing me in all sorts of directions. Okay. Small dice. Maybe... rigid body. It doesn't have any angular drag or drag, so it shouldn't change that much. But that function definitely gets triggered multiple times. I wonder. This doesn't work. Let's keep testing this. So the big one is the one that applies the upwards force, and currently sometimes upwards. Sometimes it's smaller, sometimes it's bigger. Actually, it must be because of the force of gravity. Because at the beginning, it falls from a higher distance, so the force I'm applying has to work against gravity. So then it gets lifted, and then starts slowly falling again, but it's lifted to a different height than it was originally, so the same amount of force will lift it again to a different height so that it sort of rise because of that. Okay, so let's couldn't figure out how to make the whole push squares or by seemingly equals push squares cubes. No. Okay, objects nested objects. There is no way to know what triggered collision event only by creating how the object to scoop it. I'm going to save these into Google Drive, Google Doc, so that I have a sort of record of things I learned. So anyways, it's just experiments 01. And I think that's going to be it for today. So was it like 2 hours work? Yeah, about 2 hours. 2 hours well spent. Did it push? Cannot submit change to server, why not? Okay, finally. It's annoying that it keeps the previous commit message. Anyway, it seems like I saved everything. I know a lot more about colliders now. The next time I'm probably gonna try and figure out what materials I'm gonna actually. Materials versus textures. I'm not clear on the difference. Like I know that the texture is like a picture that you can apply to meshes. At least I think that's how it works, or you add textures to materials, and materials in turn can be applied to meshes and objects. I don't know. I'll see. That's one thing I need to figure out if I want to start styling things. So what else is there? Materials, there's textures, and the other one. All right. Go rolling, modify, and mesh. So there's another thing. I'm not entirely sure. It seems like the way you animate things in 3D and in a game engine is sort of, there's sort of a blur in my mind, like where the responsibility gets separated from within the game engine and you programming something procedurally to animate, so to change and modify the mesh, and you can also have these things embedded in the object. So a game like an object or a model designer, I'm not sure what the names are of the designer, could create an object for you that you just import and has all sorts of animations that you can trigger from code. But also you should be able to move things about just programmatically, which I think is called here procedurally. Modifying things, which seems to me just like a fancy word to do things with code instead of having them predefined. by hand by a designer or someone. So like, I don't think I'm gonna worry about that in the next step. I'm gonna worry about animation later. I just want to sort of animate mesh so that it just changes its surface area, maybe with a sinus function or something to have like a sort of wavy mesh of some sort. Just define in code. Oof, I need to save that. Alright, we'll see how it goes next time.